not a vacation. There will be ways in which this trip is vacation-like, but we're on an honors college learning experience together. And so, I guess that's too big. That's the opposite of smaller. So not a vacation. We'll be operating on a pretty busy schedule that is structured, is purposeful for our learning. And so staying on board with that, staying punctual is an important piece. Behaving respectfully, maturely, in collegial, considerate ways for the entirety of the program are important. And activities that interfere with the educational purpose, with your learning and other students' learning, we'll have to respond to that, stating that won't be tolerated, right? Activity that potentially damages the relationship with UTSA and the Rancho Margot program directors, the government of Costa Rica, we'll have to deal with. And so you should understand that failure to comply with conditions listed on this document may have a negative impact on your course. And it goes through to list a variety of particulars here. I'll ask you all to read this, but the ones that are most significant to me have to do with your impact on, or the ones that seem most probable, or in my experience, things that students have dealt with on previous trips, kind of in this vein, have to do more with that impact on the group experience. Okay, it's showing. Good. Thanks, Chris. Much appreciated. The behavioral expectations in particular. It's worth speaking particularly to punctuality, and so failure to attend morning check-ins, breakfast, and evening reflection, as well as the scheduled activities during the day, will have a negative impact on your grade. We want this to be a physically, emotionally, experientially safe environment experience for people, and so that's physical safety. That's well, it's speaking to sexual harassment and sexual misconduct explicitly, and so know that Ms. Lozano and I are very much of a similar mind in regard to making sure that any allegations of that sort are dealt with. And so come to us if you're feeling like you're having an unsafe experience, if something's kind of going amiss, and we'll want to address that, right? Violating the laws of Texas or Costa Rica, those issues will be dealt with by law enforcement. And so having interactions with law enforcement in another country considerably more complicated, and we want to avoid that. So damage to or destruction of property of others, that including the university, the zoo, the ranch we're visiting, vehicles and facilities there. Abuse or misuse of alcohol or prescription drugs or other controlled substances. If you're using prescription drugs, of course, that's great. Use them according to, your doctor's recommendations as printed on the label. Alcohol is not disallowed, and the legal drinking age in Costa Rica is 18, so that's a different setup than the United States, obviously. There is room for personal discretion built into this trip because you're honors college students, because you have demonstrated an above average ability to self-regulate and make good decisions for yourself. But we'll be there as backup for that, and know that intoxication will be cause for serious repercussions, not tolerated. The Rancho Margo asks that you not bring your own alcohol. So they've got a bar on site. Don't purchase and bring alcohol to the ranch. We talked about illegal substances. Disturbing others at night. That was an issue for last year's group, sorry. Not last year's group, but the group that was there in May and June. They were having fun. They were having discussions and playing board games or something later into the evening, past the established quiet hours. And so don't be that group. It's great to have those discussions, and if you're staying up past 10 o'clock, fine. But just having that be in a hushed conversational tone is the thing to go for.
Yeah, because keep in mind, we're not the only ones there.
Yeah.
At the ranch, there's other people staying there as well.
Driving should not be an issue, but just know that you're not allowed to drive while you're down there. We'll be driven around. Smoking in permitted areas only, and I don't recall where those are, but if that...
The only time I saw one person smoking was a ranch hand, and it was way out in the parking lot,
Yeah.
past where the horses were at,
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
not that way.
And being absent from scheduled pickup or departure will be problematic for the whole group. As with any other issues of being late to events, that'll slow the whole group down. And so that's one of those things where you being mindful of your time, and being early is the same as being on time. And so also there's latitude for us to exercise judgment on what's safe and appropriate and what's not. And so we'll just ask you to exercise judgment that's a little bit on the conservative side, knowing that we are far from definitive care in a medical emergency medicine standpoint, that we're in a foreign country with different cultural norms, and that this is a group experience and not just an individual experience for each of us. Exercise a little bit of conservative judgment in the decisions you make and the things you do. If you were on a weekend jaunt on your own, you might think it's great to, I don't know, practice your parkour on the farm machinery. But because it's a group experience, if you were to injure yourself, then that might change the experience significantly for others, if not everyone on the trip, right? Just an example. And so we are the university on the trip, and so we're student conduct and judicial affairs. We're the dean's office, and if behavioral concerns, safety concerns are an issue, we're going to deal with those in a way that minimizes the impact to the rest of the trip, to the rest of the group. If there are violations of law, we're referring those to law enforcement. If there are issues that we can't address without impacting the group, that might just entail you leaving early at considerable expense to yourself. So, hey, welcome. And so please finish reading through this. Anything else you'd want to say about the participation agreement?
No, I think it's pretty clear. You guys are honor students. You're representing the Honors College and the university. Just your best behavior. Make good judgment. And if there's issues that arise, we're your sounding board. We're here for you.
So we'll get those signatures on this participation agreement from those of you who aren't here today at our earliest opportunity. Let's get those next week. How about?
I'm just looking to see who signed in.
Other pieces that we want to touch on in this section include the grading rubric. And so we've got a grading rubric for participation that is super fine print. But I'll cover primarily the major categories, and then we've got a grading rubric for the written assignments that hopefully will be useful, but I think will be very straightforward and familiar to those of you who are in the Honors College, all of you. The major categories for the participation rubric have to do with behavior, pre-trip activities, and during the trip. And so the standard there is full, willing, and positive participation, following instructions of program directors and your instructors. I think that cell got cut off there. Collegial and respectful, and being considerate of your classmates and us as instructors. Pre-trip activities, reading and reflections. Well, it has dinners in plural. We'll have a dinner on the 11th, and we'll have that be a discussion. Thank you. And so activity. And I didn't update that because this was a PDF and not a modifiable thing, but previous group had a different team building activity prior to departure. We'll have a couple of things on that Saturday. So that's what that's referencing there. There's an expectation that you are involved in yoga on a daily basis, as we discussed previously, that you're in attendance on time, fully participating in all scheduled meetings and activities at the ranch. And I guess I'm jumping ahead to later categories in this bottommost section here. And that you're attending those morning and evening check-ins. This makes reference to Spanish language sessions. We don't have those built into our schedule, as I recall. And the staff at Rancho Margo actually is in communication with us this week about fine-tuning that schedule to meet our needs and plug in a couple of special activities that we're going to get to do. And so you can see themes here that connect all of these, that you're on time, fully participating, or that your absence is excused, that we've had a conversation about that. And if you're sick and need to be in bed for a few hours, then we just communicate about that and we accommodate that. But there are also similarly themes to the category of minimal or unacceptable participation, and primarily that's unexcused absence. But other things that would fall into that category would be aspects of what we've talked about in terms of expeditionary behavior, being inconsiderate of your classmates, of us, being disrespectful of one another, or in regards to that idea of not knowing where your stuff is and where you are on the trip, losing sight of, on a regular basis, of the goals of the trip and the class, and not doing your part to be thoughtful about connecting the particulars of our activity and your experience to those goals, to the learning outcomes, to be able to contribute constructively to our conversations, right? Other thoughts or questions about this grading rubric, about, we want to make sure that you're set up for success and understand how to get an A in class and make the most of the experience.
And what our expectations are. No questions? I suspect it's early.
Yeah, I'll say that the first pre-trip meeting and so far today, our expectations are largely met. You're chiming in when you're asked to contribute individually, to the extent that you're exercising that critical thinking, sharing your ideas. That's to the good. Not particularly different than most classes, right? Except we'll be digging in manure piles also, and playing with worms and milking cows maybe. Good. And then we had a bullet point on here to elaborate on what we mean by mindfulness and engagement. With this trip having to do with intentional living and intentionality as a scholar. What are your thoughts about ways to practice mindfulness and to demonstrate that mindfulness to us, to your fellow classmates? Yeah.
I would say just being present in the moment and really focusing on what you're doing in that time and not thinking about anything else or worrying about anything else.
That's hard to do, but we do our best in that regard, right? Yeah.
I actually had a recent exercise with that, just kind of like a sidebar. There's a lot that's going on right now, and I had to take a step back and realize it's noise. It's all noise in the head. I just had to depart from that to focus on the mission and the positivity of it at the time.
Kaylee, you were gonna.
Yeah, I guess also like in like with others to also maybe be aware of like how your behavior affects others. Like if you're aware of if you're freaking out or panicking, you might cause others to freak out or panic. So if you're not feeling like great or whatever, to just relax, calm down, because you might affect others with that as well. Even if you're like super excited, you might make others super excited, and then it might turn into like a big chaos. So maybe also just kind of being aware of like this is how I'm feeling, but that doesn't mean I have to like affect others the same way.
Right. If a bug lands on my shirt and it startles me, I might continue to have kind of an emotional reaction to that for a while. And that's okay, but managing that so it's not a major distraction for me, for other people. Right. Great. Hi. Yes.
Kind of in that same vein, I tend to be like a super contributor. I like want to get really involved and like input myself. And sometimes I have to realize that part of being present and part of taking advantage of the moment is contributing my silence so that other people can have some space and contributing by listening to what other people are learning also. I tend to just get really involved and get tunnel vision and not realize that everyone else around me is also doing something exciting. So part of my contribution is just to slow down and be rather than do.
That's really well articulated, actually. That's great. Of course, it's also great to model that active participation and contribution. But you're right, that has to be done in a way that's balanced and allows for other people to contribute to not suck up all the oxygen in the room. And so far, so good. You're doing great. Comments from the, I don't want to say peanut gallery, I want to say the people out there.
Yeah, and I told them they can ask questions as we're going through.
Perfect. Yeah, because you're not much of a peanut gallery so far. Well, in that case, I think we can turn it over, and we're pretty much right on time with that, to, our risk management presentation.
And I got extras for the people that are out.
Marvelous.
So you can take them.
Okay.
I brought one for you. I don't give you one.
Okay.
And
And another sign-in sheet. We could duplicate our sign-in sheet if that works for you.
You already have one?
Yeah.
Just take them,
Yeah.
scan it.
Mhm.
And is it okay for the ones that are viewing online too?
Yes.
Good.
Because we have indicated on our sign-in sheet who signed in online.
And I
Good.
brought you an audit for the students that are missing stuff on the website.
Okay, awesome.
So you have this.
Nice.
Okay, we will let them know.
Yes. I believe I reminded folks who I couldn't find a scanned copy of their resume, or not their resume,
Passport.
their passport on there. And at least one followed up on that this week. Yeah, cool.
And this is high tech.
I will want to turn off this. And then let's see what that does for us. Trying to.
And we did have, this gentleman is no longer with us.
Okay.
So what's the difference from these where it says NA and then those have the check boxes?
That they haven't clicked that they are not an international student. I just have one
Okay.
international student.
Okay.
That is
There.
an
Okay.
I-20.
Okay.
Mhm. And I'll do it here, right?
Seems good. And there's a delay on this partly, so that's probably what's going on.
Face.
It's okay.
But I'm gonna just hang out here.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
First time going to Costa Rica?
Yes.
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 Awesome.
This
What
is
did I-
Mariela, right?
Yes,
Am I
Mariela.
pronouncing it right?
Yes, perfect.
And she is with the Office of International Programs, and so going to be sharing some resources and information for us about risk management.
Yes. So my name is Mariela Cadena. I'm the program coordinator for education abroad. Maybe you saw my email earlier, and you've seen my emails quite a lot. Just like you guys, when I was an undergrad, I studied abroad. My first study abroad program was in Brazil. I studied Portuguese and I did research over there. I came back and wanting to do more. So I went to London to do an internship, and I was there for 1 semester, came back, graduated, wanted to do more. So I went to do volunteer work in Bolivia in South America. I was there for a year, came back to Mexico for another year, and I've been at UTSA for almost 3 years. So I know what you're going through. It's scary, right? A little bit? A little? Yes? Maybe? How many of you have studied abroad?
Have international experience.
Any international experience?
Yeah.
Volunteer work abroad? Awesome. So we have a great group. Okay, so today, as part of UT system requirements, we're going to go through a mandatory pre-departure orientation. What I want you to understand from this, I usually take like 2 hours for it, but we're going to make it quick for you guys. We just want you to know what resources do you have available for you. You have a bunch of people here on the ground, and you have awesome leaders with you that will make this experience amazing, okay? Online requirements. Most of you have finished all the online requirements. I will send reminders to the people that haven't. Everything that we're asking you for has a reason for it, and we'll go through that, okay? Make sure that you complete all requirements. If you're not an international student, make sure that you click on it and say no. Otherwise, the system will be sending you emails every 10 days, I believe. It's the automated system, okay? If you're not a grad student, click on it and say no, just so you don't get those reminders. After today, I'll click the mandatory pre-departure orientation, so you don't have to deal with that, okay? My Trips travel information forward. Because Honors College purchased the tickets for you, they bought it through Concur Anthony, you're all enrolled in International SOS, and you got some of those cards in there, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that is. What I want you to do on this side, don't follow those instructions. You put ticket purchased by Honors College, submit. That's all I want you to do, okay? Very simple.
So that's a specific action they need to do, is go to this site and.
Yes, it's one of the
make that
questionnaires. Mhm.
So do we just put that like on the study abroad website?
Yes.
It's like honors purchased a ticket?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because whenever they purchase the tickets, they automatically enroll you in International SOS, so you don't have to follow all the other steps. For my other students that don't have the resources, or they have to purchase their tickets on their own, they have to do everything to be enrolled. Okay? But you guys, you're good. You're all in the system. I rechecked this morning, so you're all enrolled in International SOS. What is International SOS? You got a membership card right now. Please make sure that you keep it in a safe place, okay? We have International SOS as a travel security system that every UT system school has. Every UT system, students, staff, faculty going abroad on university business has to be enrolled in this, okay? That was a mandate by the chancellor, and we are continuing with that, okay? There's an app. You're gonna be there for over a week, right?
A week, yeah.
A week. So you can have that app for that week. If you have any medical alerts, anything like that, you'll get those notifications on the app, okay? International SOS also helps you with pre-travel preparation. Let's say you're taking some medication here, and you want to make sure that that medication is legal in Costa Rica, okay? You call International SOS, and you can do a safety and security briefing with them. I highly recommend it. Again, it is a service that it's already paid by the university. Please use it. It's a great resource, okay? You can call and say, okay, my mom and my dad, they're worried. They want to make sure where I'm going to be exactly, or they want to make sure that the medication that I take here is legal, so I'll have enough. Anything that you might want to ask them, they are your resources, okay? If you see on the card, there's a UT system dedicated number. That means whenever you call them, they'll know it's a UT system student. So we have a phone line only for us, which is great, okay? Let's say you are in Costa Rica and you start to feel sick, right? You can call ISOS and say, hey, where's the nearest hospital where I can use my travel health insurance? This is your travel security system and also your travel health insurance. It's highly important that you have that card with you, okay? Let's say things happened, there's an evacuation. They are also going to help you in case there's an evacuation. They're a great resource and we always call them when we have any issues abroad. But you can call them from today, you know, after this meeting, you're like, hey, International SOS, I'm going to Costa Rica on the 11th. I really need to know if taking this medication will be okay, or can you do a safety assessment of this area that we're gonna be staying at, so you have it and you can show that to your parents, or, okay? Get vaccinated, check the CDC if you have to get any type of vaccination. I don't think for 1 week you'll get any. That's for students that go for a longer time. I remember when I went to Bolivia, I had to get the yellow fever only to get into the country. So there are certain countries where we highly recommend students to get with the CDC just to make sure that you have everything in there. Very important, take your medicine with you. I know you're gonna be there for a short time, but make sure that you hand carry it at all times. I know sometimes students put it on the luggage to, you know, check it in. They go through customs, and then customs sees medication, they can ask what is it, and then throw it away. They might be throwing away a bunch of money, right? Not fun. So make sure that you carry it at all times, and if they ask you, you can respond, okay, this medication, I have it for this. If you're taking any, we'll talk more about the travel health kit in a second. If you're taking Tylenol or ibuprofen or whatever you are taking, make sure that you take it in the, on whatever you purchase it in. Sometimes we have students say, hey, my mom went to Costco and she has a big bottle of ibuprofen, we'll put it in a Ziploc bag. That won't work, okay? Make sure that you take it on the package that it was purchased. Are you gonna tell them to create a travel health kit, or are they gonna take any?
We briefly mentioned it about some of the key items that they might need while they're over there.
Okay,
Right, this is just in terms of physical
Yes.
items, materials.
yes.
We'll cover that briefly.
Okay, awesome. So whenever you're abroad, you know, it's only a week, but you might be like, okay, where can I find Pepto-Bismol, right? If you're not familiar with a country, or you're not familiar with the translations, it might be hard to find that that medication. And that's over-the-counter medication that you can take with you. Every time I travel, you know, I have my suitcase. Of course, you will want to bring some stuff back, but I make space for a travel health kit. Sometimes, whenever I am away for more than a year, I take some snacks that will remind me of home, you know, like spicy Mexican salsa and stuff like that. But for you, you know, make sure that you're taking any type of medication. If you have contact lens solution and you want to take extra, just so we are preventing bad things from happening, right? Destination related, if you want to take any sunscreen, insect repellent, you can also ask ISOS what will be the best insect repellent that I should take, sunscreen, and they can tell you that information, okay? Something that our students really like is to take water filters when they go to South America. I personally didn't when I was in Bolivia, and I was there for a year, right? I was working at an orphanage. And I ate one of cookie, and you know, everybody's nightmare, I lost a tooth because of the water. So I have an implant now. But take a water bottle with a filter if you can. That's highly recommended, okay? Fever pain reducers, stomach meds, those are highly important, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Allergy medications, again, you have a ton of resources, use them. You can prepare. I know you have less than 9 days before you go, or 10, right? But you can prepare. You cannot ask SOS. You can make sure that you have everything before you go, okay? All right, let's do one scenario. So you were hungry, right? So you grabbed some food from a street vendor. A few hours later, you have shooting pains in your stomach. You're clammy and you just feel awful. Just awful, right? You might have food poisoning. We have to think about two things, and we'll divide in groups. I think I counted 10 people, so 5 and 5, whatever that is. Okay, so let's think about what would you do if that happens to you? And how can this be prevented, okay? Let's take 1 minute for it. Go.
And you were suggesting folks group up into subgroups.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe 4 of you migrate this way and with Michelle. Again, we're under a tight timeline today, so we have to keep moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, June's for keeping numbers.
Again, what we do and how can this be prevented?
Well, you could prevent it by not.
We'll talk to your y'all.
1 minute, 1 minute.
I had this problem in New York City buying a hot dog from a street vendor, and I was violently ill for a couple of days after that.
I know, it's very common. I deleted like 3 other scenarios. I was like, okay, the only 2 most important ones, and that's it.
So keeping track of the particular ISOS card, because it has their member number on it.
The member number is for all UT system.
Oh, so it's generic.
It's a
So
generic.
instead of carrying the card with them, can they do like a screenshot too?
They can do that and a screenshot.
Okay, so
And-
just in case, because they're things.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot for them to keep up with. So I was gonna suggest for them to screenshot it too, so they have a backup.
Passport and ISOS.
Or I can send the one that I sent you, the online version, so they might have it on their email.
Yeah, anything in email with them is.
Will they have access to Wi-Fi everywhere?
Yes, they do, but we're gonna give them limited. So in other words, they'll have access to it, but only at certain times and certain points.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're gonna be really engaged in everything else. The point of this trip is for them to, disconnect. You know, so they've gotta really
I
engage.
should take one of those too. Disconnect.
Well, this is an amazing, Ellie and I did a site visit there. It's amazing. It's a completely self-sustainable ranch in the middle of the jungle.
It's Costa Rica is good with sustainable everything.
And their water there is really clean. I took a water, like they used to say water bottle and just went right into their fountain. You can drink the water. It's clean on the ranch because it's naturally filtered from the mountains as it comes down.
Wow, sounds like paradise.
Oh, we thought it was.
Yeah.
We went on nature hikes. Ellie was having fun. You know, all the stuff that was out there, and the food they grow. It's all organic. They all grow it there. So
I always wanted to do that,
amazing.
but my plants die. I don't even have a window in my office. It's so sad. So sad.
Could we toggle over to the chat screen and see if there are questions coming in?
just on like the internet screen,
Where?
Yeah, Chrome.
just to see if there's any. Do we have questions?
Yes.
Thanks.
Tell them I will email them. Their plane ticket information will be emailed to me. It, just so they have a copy
Okay.
of it, the itinerary and such.
But the question is where we indicate.
It's in the questionnaire.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready? So, what will you do if that happened to you? It's very common. 80% of my students get sick somehow. Okay? But you're going to paradise, I've heard, so We're hoping that's not the case with you guys. But if this happens, what do we do?
I guess you could call ISOS and let them know what happened and see what they like say. They might recommend to just take medication and sleep and drink enough, or they might be like, oh, you might want to go and have it checked out depending on like what exactly it is that you ate and made you sick.
Yes. Okay, what else?
I'll just contact both of them first and let them know that this happened and then see what they would prefer me do.
Great. Anybody else? Remember your travel health kit. Always carry that stuff with you if you're out of Paradise. I don't know how long, if they will have time outside of the ranch.
Not really.
Okay, but if, you know, in airports or whatever, and you eat something and you get sick, like hot dog somewhere, make sure that your travel, you know, you have some Pepto-Bismol pills on you, right? How can this be prevented?
Be thoughtful of what you're eating. Don't just buy food from the first, the best that you see, but kind of like, I guess, look at the situation and see if the food was refrigerated, if the person is like washing his hands or something, and just kind of like being thoughtful of what you're eating.
Okay,
For the expiration dates.
expiration dates. Okay. If you eat like a meal at a restaurant and, you know, I have a lot of students that say that like, oh, don't eat from street vendors, right? But if you haven't been to that area, if you haven't been to that country, even the most expensive or hygienic restaurant will make you sick. And the reason why is because your body is not used to that bacteria, right? So you want to make sure that you take those travel health kits just in case. Maybe even in the ranch, you're taking this amazing organic, you know, tomatoes from the farm that they're clean, and it's for you. You're not used to that. I remember, you know, I got married in Mérida in Yucatan, South Mexico, 5 months ago, and I was there for 2 weeks. I'm from Mexico, but I was in the south of Mexico. Every single member of my family got sick at some point because we're not used to the spices, we're not used to the food, we're not used to how they cook it. So you want to make sure that you're aware, you're mindful of what you're doing, what you're eating. If you're like, okay, this seems great, I'll eat it, but again, preventing bad things to happen. You'll have your travel health kit. You'll have your leaders here. Please reach out to them as soon as you feel that there's something that is not right. And again, they can reach out to ISOS. You can reach out to ISOS yourself. Again, this is not a commercial, but we want to make sure that you understand that International SOS is your best friend in a crisis, right? Even if you don't speak the language, I have students that go to Japan and then they have to get emergency surgeries. And it's, you know, it can get interesting. But we have International SOS, we have people on the ground that speak the language and they can translate. It's just a great tool that you have. All right, can someone tell me what's wrong in this photo? Yes.
I have a quick question. So
Yes.
the international SOS number, does that work without cellular data, or do you need, like?
I don't think you need data. You just need like
Okay,
a
you can just
phone
call
line.
wherever you want.
But we'll have our phones on us as well too.
Yes, and I think that significant international cellular data rates will apply if you use your phone and you're not on a Wi-Fi signal. And so I would do that in emergencies only, knowing that you could run into trouble cost-wise out of it.
Yes. One time I forgot to turn my data off and I was crossing the bridge from the US to Mexico. It was, I guess, 10 minutes, and at the time I had AT&T, it was like $1,000 for that 10 minutes. It was awful. It was a few years ago. Anyway, so can someone tell me what's wrong with this photo?
Not everybody's jumping.
Not everybody's jumping, okay.
Maybe they're being disrespectful.
Maybe disrespectful.
There's a lady, I don't know if she's
Wearing a dress. Do they seem happy, excited? Do you
Some people do,
do you think the people that is not jumping, that they are not happy?
not necessarily.
Okay, so I like this photo, right? I kind of like it, but I also hate this photo. And you can see, and when you go to the study abroad office, we have a lot of photos, a lot of programs that are marketed with those types of images, right? Just showing the beauty of studying abroad. But that's not always the case, right? You want to make sure that whenever you're going to a study abroad program, you're going to have the good and the bad, even if it's for a week, okay? You'll have great times, but you also have some lows. And that's perfectly normal, okay? Every time you travel to a different country, and all of this is based on research, right? So every time you travel to a different country, there's an adjustment, there's a culture shock, right? At the beginning, again, because you're going to be there for only 1 week, you might not feel all the stages, so you won't feel them as intense as some other students that are there for a semester, for a year, okay? At the beginning, we call it the honeymoon stage, right? Everything is great. We're in a ranch, we're in paradise, Costa Rica, pura vida, right? Everything is great. Then we're like, oh, we're homesick. And you can feel homesick a little bit. You won't have enough time to feel all of this, but I want to make sure that you are aware of it, okay? This is kind of like a roller coaster of emotions. And maybe right now you are just thinking about, okay, the readings that I have to do, the things that I have to pack, but this is not always something that you're thinking about. And it's something that you should be aware of, just in case you're there like, oh, I'm not feeling myself. Why? It's perfectly normal. It's very, very normal that you don't feel yourself, okay? Pay attention to yourself, and if in that week you start to have a depressed mood, you're losing interest in the things that you're doing over there, you feel that you are sleeping a lot, there's something that is not right, okay? We want to make sure that you have the best experience abroad, and we want to make sure that you are prepared for everything you're going to be over there. Prevention and coping strategies. Okay, what do you do here to make yourself feel better? Like, what do you do? If you're having a horrible day, eat. How I do that too. Hang out with friends. Talk about it. Go for a run, maybe listen to music. Whatever you can do over there to make yourself feel well, do it, okay? Ask for help. You have great resources. If you really need to talk to someone that knows about that subject, you can call, again, ISOS, you can call to a counselor. They're there 24/7 for you. You can call up to 5 times before they can come and visit you. Again, you're going to be there for only a week. So if you want to call someone, you can call them. They are experts in the matter. Okay? If ISOS is not a choice, you have the UTSA counseling services. They can be called at any time. And they can facilitate, a local provider if needed. Again, 1 week, we're thinking about a positive experience here, okay? Safety and security. You're not gonna travel to another city, but this happens. Let's say you travel from the ranch to the airport, and in between, you realize your passport is gone, right? Most likely stolen. What do you do if that happens? And how can this be prevented?
Are you asking our groups?
No, we'll just do it like that so we can save time.
Well, I would tell them first.
Okay, great. Okay, yes.
You can prevent it by always having it on your person and not putting it in a bag or, something that isn't on you at all times.
Okay.
Keep it in a passport pouch or keep it in a fanny pack or in your pocket.
Okay. And what if it happened? Somehow someone got it, you don't have your passport, what do you do?
Again, figure out exactly what you can do.
What's one of the requirements that I'm asking you for on the Study Abroad website? A copy of your passport, right? And the reason why we ask that is for a backup, right? If, let's say, someone gets to your passport, you don't have it anymore, we have a copy, we can send it to you, or I recommend make several copies, give it to family and friends that you trust here. I know Honors College also has a copy of the passport. The reason why is if your passport gets lost, you can call American Citizen Services at the U.S. consulate and ask for an emergency passport, right? And they can prove that you are a U.S. citizen because you have that copy. If you didn't have the copy, you have to bring a bunch of other documents, and that might delay your stay in Costa Rica, okay?
And if we have it, then Honors has access to it, we can email the photocopy easily to Rancho Margo. and then
Exactly.
I have a question. So like we send our passport information to you guys, but should we still bring like a photocopy, or is it okay if like we just like send it to you guys and that's fine?
That's up to you, but since you sent it to us, that's fine because it's safely kept here at the institution within the Honors College. And the admins here have the contact information for Rancho Margo. So God forbid that in the event that if you lose a passport, we can easily email the copy to Rancho Margo and they can have it right there at the front desk.
Okay.
But to clarify, we asked for a copy of that, but the best repository is on the Teradata site, so.
Yes, and that's a safely
Scanning
secure.
and uploading that to international programs is the thing that everyone should do, and I think a handful of you have yet to do that.
Right, and just FYI, I know it's kind of redundant, but some of the other programs that our students have been on, they also had a photocopy kept safe with a loved one at home, like a parent, a friend, somewhere safe at home as well. It doesn't hurt to have multiple copies in different places in case you need to reach somebody.
Again, we're just trying to prevent things from happening, okay?
Right.
U.S. citizens, be sure to enroll in the Smart Travel Enrollment Program. Has any one of you enrolled in this program before? It takes less than 5 minutes to do. When I was in London, I didn't have international SOS. I didn't have any of those awesome services. So the only thing that I had to do is to enroll in this program. It was very useful. When I was there in 2012, there was a terrorist attack at the U.S. Embassy, right? But because I was enrolled in this program, they knew that I was in London. A few hours later, we have a bunch of foreign affairs officers going to contact us to make sure that we were okay. Again, we have free resources available for you. It takes 5 minutes and you are taken care of for that week, okay? Non-US citizens, make sure to explore those options with your country of birth, okay? What does the U.S. Embassy or consulate do? Again, they do a bunch of emergency resources, lost and stolen passport. Those are the ones, the things that we use them mostly for. Again, the U.S. Embassy and International SOS, they work closely together in case of an emergency or in case of something happening to one of our students, okay? If you become a victim of a crime, make a report with local police, make a report with your program leaders, of course, and they will send an incident report to us. If financial, call your bank. I don't recommend taking a bunch of credit cards abroad. I don't know if they will have to buy a lot of things abroad, or I don't know how's the...
There's a recommendation to have some cash for incidentals, and so ATM or a credit card, debit card could be useful for getting cash down there in Colones. But yeah, I wouldn't bring extra cards that are kind of those backups.
Yes. If you're taking money out of an ATM, make sure if you can to take it out of those ATMs inside the banks, right? During office hours. The reason why is because if your card gets eaten by the ATM, you can go inside the bank and say, hey, I'm not from here, I'm a foreigner, my card is in there, please open that thing and give it to me, okay? So again, we're trying to prevent those things from happening. Your data, how are you connecting to internet, public Wi-Fi? Make sure that you talk with your phone provider before you go. I don't want you to pay $1,000 for using your data abroad. Always remove your pre-saved keychain password from phone or computer, especially if you're going to be using Wi-Fi from other places. People can get into your information and you can get hacked, okay? You can do, every time I travel, again, you're going to a very safe area, but if you're in the airport and you're using the public Wi-Fi or anything, please make sure that you remove those pre-saved keychain passwords, okay? UTSA Code of Conduct applies, okay, while participating in a study abroad program. Your leaders have much more power abroad. If they see that you are not behaving to their standards, they can send you back home and you have to pay for your own flight, okay? Again, you're still in an academic course, not on vacation. You have to be a good representative, again, of the honors college, right? Of UTSA, of Texas, and especially yourself, your family. If you are the first one, let's say, to study abroad, that's a pathway that you're living to maybe your nieces and nephews, like, oh, I want to be like my aunt. She studied abroad. I want to be like her, right? So you want to make sure that you are representing yourself well abroad and you're representing the institution well. Again, I know I scare you a little bit with the scenarios, but keep it in perspective. You are the person in most control of your safety. Everything, well, I didn't talk to you about some other scenarios that are worst, but the ones that we talked about are the worst that can ever happen, okay? The worst that can ever happen. Many of my programs happen without any bad things. Students go and come like nothing. I had 350 students in the summer. They all went. You're the last summer program. They all came back. They're all happy and successful programs, okay? Do you have any questions? Yes.
I have a question about the travel signature for international students.
Yes.
So I emailed the office like last week or 2 weeks ago, and I still haven't heard anything back.
Kaylee?
Yeah.
Yes, I talked with Nina yesterday, so
Okay.
she's preparing your I-20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you'll have it ready by
Okay.
before you go.
Good to know.
Yes, don't worry, I took care of that. Anybody else?
I'm glad that both of our international students are here. Sorry, Michelle. But you have a visa arranged and you shared a copy of that with us.
Yes.
And you have a permanent resident card. And the one thing that I responded to you on was to make sure it conformed to that it was valid for the dates of travel and that it had the security features that they made reference to there. And if you have any questions or, you want to.
Actually, I have the card with me right now.
Maybe afterwards, you could take a minute with Marielle and
Okay.
just confirm that that's good to go.
Any other questions? Yes.
So when we put a photocopy of our passport on the study abroad website, does it just need to be like where our picture is? and
Yes,
that's-
your front
Just
page,
that,
only
okay.
that.
Where exactly can I find vaccination?
At the CDC website, and I can send you the information, the link, and I can send you a link to everybody if you can check that. Or you can call SOS
It's in our
too.
program handbook as well.
Oh, great.
Centers for Disease Control.
Anything else?
Do we need any specific vaccinations for Costa Rica?
I don't think so.
No,
If you're traveling from other Latin American countries or other international countries, then Costa Rica has some requirements, but not for travelers from the United States.
I don't think so.
Not that I have seen. Has anybody else seen differently?
Again, you can call SOS to make sure, but they already went and they didn't ask you for anything. Was this helpful? A little bit? Did you get scared, excited? Get excited, guys. I want to go to Costa Rica too for what they told me. You'll have a great time. If you have any questions, you have my email address. I sent you an email this morning. If you have any questions about safety, security, the website, anything, just send me an email, okay? And stay engaged when you return. When you return, we're gonna have the Study Abroad Fair. You can, stop by, and if you're interested in doing other programs, we'll be there to see you. Okay, have a blast. Great.
Let's see if there are other questions there.
Just thank you.
Good. Great.
Thank you so much.
Great.
No problem.
Thanks,
I did it fast enough. Yes.
Yeah, you finished ahead of time.
I usually take like 2 hours, so I'm sorry. I was like trying to talk really fast.
Very much appreciated.
No, thank you. I want to go to Costa Rica.
I know.
Okay, if you need anything, let me know.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And yeah, if you want to just touch base briefly about that permanent resident card, and then that will close through, make sure that everybody's good to go. Our next piece is to talk about, and I realize we do this as a 2-hour marathon thing, so if you need to go to the restroom, get a drink of water, do that as you need to, you two out there. I'm sorry I'm not terrific at this streaming multimedia thing here, but thanks for bearing with us and being with us.
I can monitor that.
Cool. So the next piece for us to talk about is packing and other logistics. To frame this, I'll say that we advise you to pack in one checkable suitcase So United Airlines has dimensional requirements for the maximum size of a checkable piece of luggage. It's like the sum or the product, I can't remember which, the sum of the length times width times height, or length plus width plus height. Look at their website. I'll stop talking about that. But don't bring a ginormous bag, or you'll be out of pocket for some additional usurious charges for checking that.
And just kind of a sidebar
yeah.
with that, just remember that you guys will need to get like a little lock or something, because you're gonna have a little bin that you get to put all your stuff in to secure. And if you do have the big rolling bags that you bring with you to check in, I don't mind storing those in the bungalows. I can't speak for Mr. Howard,
Yeah.
but I'm sure he wouldn't mind either. That way it's not invading your personal space.
Yeah.
Because where you're staying at the bunkhouses, think of it kind of like a hostel. You guys are gonna have the bunk beds, and it's each individual little space rooms, but there's not a whole lot of room to maneuver if you're gonna pile a whole bunch of bags and stuff in there. So be smart when you pack. Honestly, I'm bringing one little rolling thing, but I don't even check it in. It's small enough to be a carry-on, because you're only there for a week, and you don't need a lot of unnecessary items. But if
Yes.
you do bring a bag that you check in, or a rolling bag that you can carry on, I personally don't mind storing it in my space to free up y'all's space as well.
So pack lightly for a week. Consider that a challenge of the intentional and sustainable living philosophies of the class.
And what I can say about that I've learned, there's great tutorials on how to organize and pack for space. One of the things I learned is roll your clothes. It saves so much space in your luggage, and I've actually been using that quite a bit now as I travel, and I find I have extra room in my luggage for it. So use online tutorials for space organization in your luggage.
And maybe just a quick check-in. Let's call this your meter of how confident you feel, how assured you feel about being able to adequately pack and equip yourselves for the week. Where this is, I am uncertain about this and have lots of questions and worry that I won't come prepared. And this is, I feel great about this and I'm ready to go. So where are you with your meter?
Oh, awesome. We
Okay,
have such a great
fantastic. Good. So we'll do a quick go through of this just to reinforce that and make sure that your expectations and assumptions are kind of based on a good recollection of this material. So we arrive on the Sunday afternoon, we return on the following Saturday morning. So that's the week we're counting on. Each day will involve outdoor activity. It may be that each day some of that outdoor activity will be in the rain, or all of that will be in the rain, possibly.
Or sunshine.
So yeah, or both. So come prepared for that. And so it talks about variables for clothing for the program: activity, weather, storage space, and cultural location. And that's a great way to frame it also. We'll be outside, hot, humid, buggy. And you'll have one small cabinet and a deep drawer to keep your things. The cultural location is also important. So not revealing or what else?
Just
did we talk about
inappropriate,
that?
like inappropriate
Yeah.
images, no revealing
Yeah.
clothing, those kinds of things.
Yeah. The way you're all dressed right now looks like you would be great for in regards to that. Maybe not in regards to the hot, humid, wet weather, but a few pairs of loose, lightweight pants that are quick drying and thin. That's the ideal. Now, if buying additional wardrobe pieces is gonna be a big hit to your budget that you can't really afford, then go with what you have. Because it's a week, more than likely you'll be okay. But because this is a special experience, you don't want to be bummed out or distracted by inappropriate attire. So if you can possibly afford, then you'd be better off with things that fit this description.
And the nice thing is, it's the end of summer, so a lot of places like Academy and so forth have all their summer stuff on sale.
Mhm.
We were just talking earlier, I was at Academy recently, and they had women's dry fit tops on sale for like $5 or $7. So you could get a couple of those and easily rotate them out.
And there are a variety of kind of name brands of those synthetic fabrics for tops and bottom layers. And the idea is that they are more quick drying, that they staying warm when you're wet is not going to be an issue so much for us, more than likely. Mostly it's the fact that they are non-absorptive or absorb less moisture and dry out more quickly. Some of them will have additional SPF factor treatments. Some of them will have insect repellency treatments. So that's something to look at possibly. So a few pairs of loose, quick drying pants that are thin. Cotton and denim particularly will absorb and retain a lot of moisture, and so that's why they're less ideal. 2 pairs of shorts. If you're fragrant to bugs, just 1 pair, meaning you'll be less likely to get bitten if you're wearing longer sleeves pants and shirts. 5 or 6 lightweight shirts, so that's accounting for basically 1 change per day, and that seems like a good idea given that it's hot and humid and wet. 2 to 3 sets of yoga clothes, so being able to reuse those because we're doing yoga every day, or it may be that lightweight shirt, can do double duty. If you're going to yoga in the morning, you can wear the shirt you're going to wear for the day, provided that it allows for a little bit of freedom of movement to do those. This is me demonstrating yoga right here, by the way. What? Footwear. Waterproof shoes for the shower, walking to and from the pool, kayaking possibly. Those can be sneakers, but know that if you're lugging an extra pair of sneakers or you're using your kind of mainstay shoes and they're wet, then you're going to be wearing them wet for a while afterwards because they will not dry out particularly quickly. So having some kind of lightweight thing would be a good idea for that. Sturdy closed-toed shoes with good tread for walking or hiking. There are great opportunities for that on the ranch, and don't miss it. And don't set yourselves up for struggling on that or having to forego the hikes because you didn't bring good shoes. Now, that said, they can look like several things. They could look like a walking shoe like this. These have lousy tread on them because they're cold. But, it could be a running shoe, a trainer, that type of thing, athletic footwear. It doesn't have to be, a lug-soled hiking boot suitable for Mount Everest. Make sense? 5 pair of quick dry or wicking socks. Consider synthetic fabrics for those as well for the similar reasons we talked about. Gardening gloves, maybe with extra padding or protection on the palms. Enough underwear for a week, and we let you be the judge of that. Choose your own adventure on that. Swimsuit and a cover-up for going back and forth to the pool. If you're wearing long, less revealing swimwear, then maybe you don't need an extra cover-up. Sunglasses recommended. A hat, a sun and maybe rain hat. I like a ball cap so that the hood of my rain jacket comes up over that versus a wider brimmed hat that I can't get that over. But you can figure out what you like. Maybe what you have in your closet already. A journal, which we've provided. A fanny pack or a real lightweight day pack that you can bring around to carry said journal, to carry a headlamp, a water bottle, things like that you might want, because we'll be out for 2-3 hours at a time, and you'll want to come prepared to take good care of yourself. You can pack bug spray and sunscreen along the way with that, your work gloves. So you get the sense of volume I'm talking about here. Like, it doesn't have to be necessarily as big as one of these kind of bags, but something like that. And I'm not suggesting this type of bag, but something that's of this volume as that could work in a pinch. And it's got lovely pink flamingos on it, so that's a plus too.
A lot of times I'll use those little lightweight nylon drawstring backpacks.
Yeah.
Just remember also to bring a plastic Ziploc bag to put your phones and such in.
And they also sell pretty cheaply those phone inserts, the waterproof phone inserts that you can drop your phone in and lock it. I'm gonna use one of those because you gotta keep in mind the moisture there is so thick in the air, it can ruin your electronics, as Mr. Howard found out.
Yes, yes. Are we gonna be able to provide a Honors College water bottle?
We will not. We were able to get you guys the luggage tags and the, they're not waterproof, but these journals, are kind of like the water resistant type of journals. So we were able to provide these for you.
Yeah.
So you can get water bottles anywhere for pretty cheap. Just bring one with
Yep.
you.
Yep. Additional items, sunscreen, mosquito repellents, anti-itch cream, antibiotic ointment, Band-Aids, motion sickness medicine, Pepto-Bismol, antacid. We recommend that you come prepared to take care of yourself, so temporary illness is not a major distraction for you. Which, you know, her talking about 80% of travelers abroad getting sick seems like a high number, and that makes me think she's talking about folks who go for a semester or a year at a time. In my experience of a decade of taking people traveling in austere environments, I've not seen anywhere near that rate of illness. So know that it's a possibility, but probably not a likelihood, I'm hoping. We're doing it wrong if it's 80% of our participants getting that sick. Okay, other items kind of continued. Lightweight rain jacket or poncho and or umbrella. I'll bring a lightweight rain jacket and lightweight rain pants too. They can set you back, but at Academy they've got some great affordable options there. A poncho can be a nice way to go, and given that it's warmer, that can give more ventilation to your system. And so a poncho can be both affordable and more comfortable. And an umbrella is another nice thing to consider because it gives you like this little room that you can travel around in and not have to feel like you're confined to just the inside of your hood. A hiking headlamp shouldn't be expensive. If you can find a model that also has a red light feature, that can be nice for night hiking. I don't have one of those, but my wife and I have acquired like 20 headlamps, and I'm not going to buy another one. None of them have this red light feature. I've seen those, but never owned one. Travel binoculars, not a necessity, and they can be spendy, so don't go breaking the bank on those. But if somebody has a pair, anybody?
I have a
Monocular, very cool. Yeah, neat.
For this short of a trip, I don't think they're gonna need them.
But we'll see some neat birds more than
Yeah.
likely, and so it can be cool for that.
Excuse me.
Personal prescription medications in the original containers, like she talked about, in a Ziploc bag. The closest pharmacy is a 45-minute drive, and that'll really put a crimp in our schedule, so don't make that have to happen. Personal hygiene items, limited to what you really need. You know, if you can get by for a week on one of those little travel size shampoos, so you're not having, well, one, because it can be problematic. I guess if you're putting in your checked luggage, it's not as big an issue, but don't bring the family size economy, you know, shampoo bottle. Ziploc bags or dry sacks to keep your tech stuff dry in if you're bringing a nice camera for your phone, things like that.
And if I can go back to the previous point, remember this is a zero waste ecological environment. So there's no need for colognes, perfumes, those heavy kinds of lotions like that, because they don't want it running off into their environment there. So, you know, pack light, pack only what you need. And I bring just a simple little thin kind of lotion with me because, you know, my skin dries out. I get that. But they don't want a whole lot of the toxins going in to their environment while they're there.
Charging cord set up for your phone, for your camera. There's no need for adapters in Costa Rica. They're using the same kind of electrical system and outlets that we do here, but for other countries, that's a consideration. Approximately $100 in spending money for souvenirs and or meals. That's a ballpark suggestion. So do what your budget allows for, but if you're spending more than that, you're spending a lot, in my opinion. We'll have a chance to get colones at the airport at a money exchange there.
Is it mandatory to carry colones? Because I think when I went to Costa Rica, they accepted dollars everywhere, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, in my limited experience, places will often accept dollars. You'll get the exchange rate that they feel like giving you, which in many cases won't be as favorable to you as getting your money exchanged at the airport. Make sense?
But with this, you don't necessarily need that kind of money on the ranch because your meals are provided and so forth. This is like if you're getting a meal before on the flight, the
Yeah.
meal after coming back, those kinds of things. Or if we happen to stop at a vendor somewhere on the way in or out of the ranch,
Yeah.
if you want to purchase something.
Right. But that does raise a good question because essentially there is a transaction fee for changing your money from US dollars to colones on the outset, and then on the return, there's another transaction fee for transferring your money back from colones to dollars. And so I don't know what that rate is exactly, but I expected that it's not insignificant. So you might consider just changing a portion of money into colones at the outset and having some as in dollars for those situations where it seems like you can use dollars just as well. Good question, good addition. It recommends credit card and ATM or ATM card for, like we said, getting money at the airport. For 21 of us doing that process, it can be a little bit time consuming. I don't recall seeing a big bank of ATMs there, so just know that that'll take us a little while. It's a note to self as much as anything, I suppose. A few wooden clothespins could be a good idea. There's a clothesline there, but to keep your things from falling off a clothesline, having clothespins. They're these wooden things, or there's metal or plastic ones too, but anyway, that's some old tech. Optional items: headphones, earbuds, if you want to listen to music on the plane or in the evening without disturbing your roommate. Something to think about. Earplugs for sleeping. I would recommend this over the earbuds to block out noise. A musical instrument. Oh, and the other thing it recommends is an eye mask if you're sensitive to light. I think might be some low ambient light that's just kept on in the bunkhouse. But earplugs and an eye mask could be good things to bring along. And then a musical instrument, if you play one and want to share that talent with us, you can store these in the reception office. It is somewhat more climate controlled than the rest of the rainforest areas. So you be the judge of whether or not you want to bring your violin. Other questions or comments about things to bring or things not to bring? Yeah, McKim.
They prefer stuff without DEET because the DEET can be harmful to the environment there. But some people had brought stuff with DEET. Now, when we went, we used kind of, Dr. Ingates had a couple of different ones with her, and she had one that worked really well for me.
Mhm.
It was like a body butter. It came in a stick. That one seemed to work, but some people prefer more the lotion style or the spray style. It doesn't matter. It's really what works for you. Just be careful with the DEET one, so.
Yeah.
Good question.
Other questions or comments?
I have a question, but it's like on like the transportation thing.
Mhm.
So whenever, because I live in Austin, that's where my family lives, I'm there for the summer. So whenever we go to the hotel, is it easier for them to just drop me off? Or should I drive and leave my car somewhere?
So I put the question to the desk clerk at the hotel about leaving cars in their parking lot on site for the week, and they said no problem. But I'm gonna ask that question again just because it seems like I could see their parking lot getting filled up really quickly if they didn't, patrol that and tow vehicles that weren't staying there. But from what I've heard, you're good to park there for the week. So, unless you hear otherwise from me, know that that's the assurance that the hotel has given us. That's a great question. Other questions?
No,
We'll
just
move on if
trip
not.
wise,
Oh, yeah.
can I just give them a
Oh,
little bit of this
yeah,
information?
good.
I will email each one of you your itinerary for the flight, but if you wanna write this down, just so you have a general idea of what our flight pattern will be. We are leaving, Sunday, August 12th at 7:20 in the morning, which means we have to be there by 5:20 in the airport. Yes, it's gonna be very early. We have to be there early. Yeah, but that's why we're staying at the hotel the night before, so we can make sure to get everybody there on time on the shuttle. So we're leaving San Antonio at 7:20, and we're arriving in George Bush in Houston at 8:21 a.m. And then we depart George Bush, the Houston airport, at 9:59 p.m. No, excuse me, that's looking at the wrong one. Sorry, our printer prints double-sided. We're going from George Bush, Houston, from 9:50 to San Jose, Costa Rica. We're not going to Liberia. We're going to San Jose, and we'll arrive at 12:30 p.m. their time. Okay.
Is there a time difference? How much?
I think they're an hour ahead or behind? I want to say they're an hour behind.
Yeah, I don't recall.
Oh, that would make sense, like, okay.
Yeah.
I think they're an hour behind. But the trip we went on, we flew to Liberia. Well, San Jose is the exact same distance. And then we'll have a shuttle pick us up. And we're actually gonna go in 2 different shuttles because it's too large of a group for one. And then they'll take us directly into the ranch, and it'll be about a 3-hour trip into the ranch. That's where you're gonna need your motion sickness pills. If you're like me, there's a lot of twisty turns, unpaved roads. Doesn't fare very well on my stomach.
We're asking you to arrive at the hotel on Saturday, the 11th. You say 4 p.m.?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll give us some opportunity for additional activity to kind of set the tone and lay groundwork for the trip, and also to have a nice meal, and then to get a good night's sleep before we get up so early the following morning.
What hotel are we staying?
It's the Spring Hill Suites, and I'll share that address information with you all in an updated version of this. Yeah. But it's Spring Hill Suites by the airport. They say it's like a 2-minute shuttle drive, and they're gonna shuttle us from the hotel in the morning, starting at about 5 a.m. Which, it'll be good for us to get something like, some kind of light snacky thing, maybe.
I usually pack, like I said before, like the Nature Valley granola bars, because that's usually what I eat for breakfast. And my favorite little snack treat that I like to hide in my bag is I love the Chex Mix. Mr. Howard found that he loved them too.
Yeah.
They're very good. So something simple like that, just don't pack a whole lot, because the ranch doesn't want a whole lot of commercial foods coming on. Now, I had those in my bag the entire time while I was there, but I left them there because, trust me, the food on the ranch is amazing. You're not going to want the commercial processed snacks. That's just because we have long travel days, and you need to have intermediate snacks in between. And then, of course, you can always purchase food at the airport and eat there.
So, going twice, any other questions or comments about packing and logistics?
And Miss Ariana pointed out that Costa Rica is an hour ahead of us.
Thanks.
Nice.
All right, so then we'll get into some of the discussion about the reading, David Orr, Earth and Mind. What did you all think of that?
It was very interesting.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't know, it just gave insights about things that I never really thought about. Like how everything is just kind of interconnected with each other, like how he pointed to education, and then how nature was important, and then economics, and then nature. Like, I loved when he gave the example of like the University of California just selling a bunch of land for their own profit, instead of thinking about like, oh, but we could have used this for our biology students, or we could have used this for like science students. And I don't know, it was just interesting to see how he made like connections between everything. Because it just kind of showed how like little we really think about everything we do every day.
Yeah.
And it was just really nice to see like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense on like
Yeah.
how we do things for ourselves without really thinking about like,
The impact.
yeah, like the environment and as a whole.
Other thoughts, reactions?
I thought it was really powerful how he explained that, that one of the dangers of education is in choosing a career before you have your calling. You know, so many times people see dollar signs at the end of a degree plan without really realizing what their true motivations are and what their passions are. You know, we graduate from high school and mom and dad are like, go to school, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an accountant, and very often that's not what ends up being your calling, and a lot of people waste time. I wasted my first time in college, and I'm lucky enough to be able to do it again, but that really resonated with me. You're in danger of not really doing what you want to do in favor of doing what you think you should be doing.
Other impressions or recollections?
I like how he said another danger was that they're kind of, the way schools are going, they're kind of teaching them just to make more and just keep going and keep pushing things and not really teaching them to like look around and notice how things are now and try to conserve things. They're not teaching that as much as they are, you know, produce more and make more.
Which is why this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that section about the dangers of education. I thought it was really powerful when it talked about like some of our education kind of like deadening students' sense of wonder in the world. I think a lot of that education can like you said, making you think about your career before you even learn. It's like it's really important for people to have like their own passion, and when it talked about like real world professionals like farmers and giving less respect to like PhDs and, you know, respecting these people that actually apply like biological and ecological practices in the real world every day. People are passionate about that stuff and being passionate about being like sustainable and, you know, working with the environment. I think that's really powerful to give respect to that and have more professionals in the world that are like passionate about what they do.
Yes.
Very good.
He opened with a comparison and contrast with between two prominent historical figures, right? Speer and Aldo Leopold, right? Famous for very different things. Both highly educated individuals. And quickly that launched into this questioning of a major assumption that seems like is prevalent in society, that our problems environmentally have to do with not being well enough educated on the issues and not having developed the appropriate technology to fix the problems, right? What does he have to say about that?
I don't know if it's really related with that, but his assessment on like intelligence and how it's often people with like higher degrees that are actually the ones like not working to fix the environment, but are rather like ruining it. I don't know. It just kind of seemed that he was saying like you don't have to be smart or have to be able to say that you have a PhD in order to be like, oh, but I can find ways on how to like help make the environment a better place. Because it seemed most often like he was saying that those people were most often just seeing like profit. Like, oh, but it doesn't really matter, like global warming, like nah, that's not a real thing. Like we'll just keep building and making industries and keep working, but not really thinking about that they are actually the people that we think would be able to find ways to help solve the issues rather than create them.
Right. Yeah. So it's those people who are most accomplished in academic terms, in professional terms, that are responsible for hugely disproportionate impacts. People who live in the most developed countries, likewise being responsible for hugely disproportionate impacts. And academia in particular, in its hyper specialization and segmentation of knowledge, of pursuits of understanding, perpetuate and create that situation.
I believe that like where you're living also determines how education impacts you. Because people like us right now, we're sitting in this classroom and we're talking about it, so we know the outside and the inside. But most people, when they grow up in a place where they just get a K through 12 education, is different for them compared to people who live in the farms or something else, where they have to learn how to live sustainably. So like they have to learn to grow or to like do some things that by themselves, learn their surroundings. It's completely different view for them compared to people who are just coming in the classroom, just getting all this information, putting it in your brain, and then just going home and then maybe not ever using it again.
Yeah.
So.
And the variable I hear you talking about there is connection and interface with nature and kind of in a hands-on way in your daily surroundings, right? Yeah. There's an author who talks about nature deficit disorder. Does anybody remember that author's name? I wish I could. It's escaping me right now, but talking about this kind of crisis that kids who are overprotected and over-insulated from the natural environment and from opportunities for unstructured experience, that there are consequences associated with that developmentally. Yeah. So folks enjoy the reading and see it as a connected, good primer for our experience in Costa Rica. Great. I'll go to some of the questions that really stood out. And again, I appreciated all of your questions. Some of them came up as really, there were some common themes there, repeat questions. But David Orr mentions 3 dangers of formal education. List the one danger and describe the difference between a career and calling. We touched on that already. He described a calling as having a purpose, a sense of value and meaning to give to the world. And it has to do with an inner conversation, personal reflection, and gaining insight into your strengths, what you have to contribute, what excites you, what you're passionate about. Who were the people or used as examples? Okay, yeah, so we talked about Albert Speer and Aldo Leopold. The one was the architect of the, was it like basically the death chambers in the concentration camp? Was that what Speer was responsible for? The Minister of Armaments, sorry. And Aldo Leopold, really prominent American conservationist, that formal education equips students to prepare themselves for careers and lifestyles in Speer's case, and not preparing them to develop a purpose and passion, as in Leopold's case. That formal education fails to teach students about the interconnectedness of disciplines, like we talked about. Why is virtue one of Orr's first principles of rethinking education? What recollections do y'all have from the reading about how virtue should be a guiding principle in education? Or what he had to say about virtue? And again, I'm not looking for verbatim, recollections there, your impressions that are tangent even to the question. how is virtue related to education?
I think it's really important to, talking about the intersectionality, to look at why the education is important to you, but more importantly, why you are important to the furthering of the education. Like what not only you can learn and what you can do using that information, but what you can then pass on to someone else, and what you can teach, and what experiences you can get from other people. I think it's really looking at the whole of education and not just the what's in it for me.
Right, yeah, going back to those ideas of interconnectedness and of education being for something in addition to abstracted theoretical learning for its own purposes. What were some of the ways he talked about virtue or judging the appropriateness of education and action? This was an environmental critique of education, right? So in what ways did he see an ecological mindset or framework being applied to education? Is that a more confusing question or less?
I guess it's just kind of like how the education, like universities don't really focus on the environment. It's more of like the technical stuff and not really like how to take care of it and make it last longer than being sustainable and stuff like that. So like we don't really get taught that. That's something that we have to learn outside of school.
One of the other questions that, well, I'll go to this one. And maybe the question got cut off here, but sorry. But he suggests that the world needs more people who think broadly and who understand systems, connections, patterns, and root causes. People who can figure out the problems caused by others. It makes me think of this Dr. Seuss book that I read to my kids from time to time, and I can't remember the title of it, but it starts off with these two kids shoveling snow out in front of their house. Their mom's gone to town, and they have to clear the sidewalk. This is something people do where it snows. Take my word for it. And all of a sudden, the Cat in the Hat comes along, and they're like, oh my God, it's that cat. He's bad news. He's a troublemaker. He runs in the house and jumps in the bathtub and eats a cake while he's taking a bath. And the kid comes in and says, get out of here. We've got work to do, and you're making a mess. And the cat jumps out, and there's a big pink ring left in the bathtub. He has to clean up the bathtub, or his mom's going to be really upset. And the cat says, no problem. I'll clean up that pink ink. It's rhyming too, right? Because it's Dr. Seuss. And so he just uses his mom's wedding dress to clean the ring off the tub. And so it's this ongoing then comedy about how he messes up something else in the pursuit of cleaning the thing that he just got dirty. And they keep getting bigger and more complex and harder to solve until he has to bring out these microscopic minions that he keeps in his hat. Is this ringing a bell? Did any of y'all read this story? Yeah. And so eventually they're, the pink ink, the pollutant is basically exploded, and all of the snow and the house and everything is all pink. And these little minions are fixing this until he brings out like a subatomic mini-me Cat in the Hat under several sublayers of hat on his head, who causes this huge explosion, and then the ink is magically gone and somewhere else, and all is solved, and the sidewalk is shoveled. But that idea of solving a problem in a very short-term kind of framework, right? Solving a problem of quarterly earnings at the expense of what our grandchildren are going to do about potable drinking water. Yeah. He talks about virtue as having to do with sustainability and also beauty. That a sense of aesthetics and appreciation for the environment is psychologically important and bears reference in conversations about how we, the important decisions we make. I think some of those questions about virtue and beauty bear consideration because who decides what they are, right? Did he give some indication of how to answer that? And I think, Lizette, you were touching on it in part, that it had to do with what's sustainable and what's good for the broader intact community of life, not just human community.
Animals,
Mm-hmm.
the environment, plants, everything.
Yeah. What's a question, I'll switch gears here because we're running out of time. What's a question that you're left with based on the OR reading that you want to investigate some more on this trip?
He offers, like with every chapter, he seems to kind of give a problem and then offer a few ways on how to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
But he never really went like into detail, I guess, how he wants other people to look at it. Like, I don't know, with like education where he offers some things like, oh, I would recommend schools to do this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think this trip will help us kind of realize how we can come back home and like do that in our own lives at home as well. Like not necessarily like all of a sudden from day one go like zero waste and not produce anything anymore. But I think like with the tips he gives, it would be kind of nice to see where he would explain it a bit more rather than just like, this is what I recommend, okay, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
And because not like every school is able to just change their curriculum out of nowhere. Not everybody is all of a sudden like, I don't know, it was very interesting to read, but sometimes it felt like he was overgeneralizing a little bit, without really like going into maybe like these schools could do this, or maybe like if every school would start doing this, that would already change, rather than just offering like, if we would all do this, this would happen, but not everybody can do or contribute the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. And maybe it's not a criticism of this book in particular. I don't think it could feasibly set out to be this general examination of priorities as well as a very specifically prescriptive list. But that seems like a great thing to take forward into the trip. What are specifics that we can do
Yeah.
to operationalize, put some of these ideas into effect?
He gives a lot of statistics about like by this year this many boards will be gone, by this year all of this.
Yeah.
So I want to know like how it, because a lot of people can live sustainably, but how much is their impact? Like, can they make the difference? I mean, if everyone does it, there will be a big difference, but like by how much are they really contributing to like helping these numbers go down?
It feels like a minuscule impact that we
Yes.
have as individuals,
Like, will,
right?
What I do, will it really help? Like,
Yeah,
but I feel like
yeah.
so can make a difference.
I feel like I've been able to answer that question for myself, but it's not an easy question to answer.
Well, and then sometimes even the effort that you do, like, don't always help with you recycling the apartment. But then there's things that in San Antonio themselves that they don't have a facility for to recycle. So things we think we can recycle actually end up back in the trash rather than like us wanting to recycle it. And the United States is a huge country. Like I'm from Europe, and Germany will smack you on recycling. Like if you don't do it, they won't like you.
Yeah.
But there's such a tiny, like I'm from Belgium, we're this big on the world map, like not even kidding. But here, like if you put a trash bag out, they will put a red sticker on it if there's something in the recycle that's not recyclable. So here, like sometimes, and that's what I guess I know with like overgeneralizing, is that like one person can make a difference if they allow us to. Like I think it's our efforts that will matter, but like the society as a whole has to allow us to let us do
Mm.
that, I think. Like now how Starbucks and Disney and they're like stopping plastic straws, like that's great because now everybody that goes get a cup of coffee will be able to like make less plastic or whatever. While before, like if you bring your own straw, people look at you like, what? So
Yeah.
now it might, like if they allow you to do it, I think it will make a difference. And that's why I think district will be really good to kind of see how like other places are doing it and kind of being able to see like, oh, I never thought I could be able to reuse this, or I never thought that I didn't have to throw this out or something. Like, I think it would be really nice to kind of get an insight on what we could do as persons
Mhm.
individually.
Yeah. Great. Great.
Kind of parlaying on what you said, one observation I had when I went for the site visit, you know, we tell you guys to take off the blinders, right? And kind of unplug from your norm and kind of get into the groove here. I was very conscious and aware of what I was putting in the trash can while I was there. Versus here, you know, blow my nose, throw it in the trash can, walk off, you know, not a big deal. I don't think about that while I'm here. But then I realized while I was there in the bathroom, I was very conscious about what I put in the trash can,
Yeah.
you know, there. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Good observations.
Like, I don't know if you guys know, in the JPL, the big trash cans, like trash and recycle, where they like split it doesn't actually get split. I learned it because I work at Starbucks and we take the trash out, and I was like, oh, how do I know what is recycled? And they're like, oh, we don't do that. It's Aramark, which is controlling UTSA dining, and those areas, like Aramark just doesn't care about recycling. So I have a project with Honors that I talked to Ms. Glover about that I want to start doing, and I want to make sure that Aramark creates a policy where their locations have to recycle, because just as the JPL ourselves, like you don't want to know how much trash and recycle we take to the trash, which is very upsetting. So I hope that through that, and then kind of seeing, like going to Costa Rica, seeing how they do it, to be like, it's really not that hard, like we have to be able to do this as just a small location in a big university, which will make a huge difference.
Yeah.
But so I've told people, and they're always so surprised, because I was like, some people that come to work, they find a big gallon of milk, they're like, oh, I'll take this to the recycle. I'm like, honey, it doesn't matter, like I'm sorry, they try so hard. And it just makes me upset, which is why it was interesting to read the book, to see that like it's kind of everywhere without really like being aware of that. Because I used to recycle, like, oh, my cup, recycle, and now I'm like, it doesn't matter, which is very upsetting.
I know that the UTSA folks, not Aramark affiliated, are there is a staff who are dedicated to recycling,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
do a great job of following through on
Yeah.
that. So I don't think that is the case for all recycling receptacles
Oh, no,
throughout
it's the
campus.
ones in the
JPL,
Like
okay.
those are the ones I know about.
Yeah. So I think because we are running out of time here, we'll end with discussing the assignments that are due prior to departure for our next meeting on August 11th, like she said, 9 days from now. And so those are, the first of those are to follow up. If you are on this list, I'll be reaching out to you to get your information to Education Abroad Services. But then in terms of the reading assignments, it's The Unsettlers by Mark Sundin. Read the introduction in chapter 1, it's about 40 pages. And then a section from Excellent Sheep by William Deresiewicz. Read part 6, Inventing Your Life. It's another 40 pages, so not too heavy on the reading there. And develop and submit 2 quiz questions and answers like you did this time. And I'll put a similar survey on the Blackboard, although it was super hard to process those after the fact. One, they came through anonymously, which is fine. It was great. I could tell who had done it, but not whose questions and answers were whose. But the hard part was that it came through in this gobbledygook of weird formatting text with little segments of answers interspersed between these long strings of garbage nonsense language.
I'll have to contact them.
Yeah. So yeah, The Unsettlers and Excellent Sheep. And continuing with your mindfulness practice and making entries in your mindfulness journals. How is that going for people? Great. Some awesome and heads shaking really emphatically, and others are less committal.
I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah,
And I just got back to it yesterday.
yeah.
I was like, so I looked at it and I was like, the last time I did it was like 2 weeks ago or something.
So you can make a decision to get back in doing that on a regular basis. Great. And thanks for being candid about that. That's okay. This class is not intended to, occupy your whole life, but to be something that builds a practice in preparation for our time in Costa Rica and to help you explore more deeply these ideas of intentional living and sustainability.
And then we did have one question online about assigning roommates.
Yes. We are going to do that, and so you can expect to have a same-sex roommate for the hotel stay here and for the bunkhouse in Costa Rica. And if you have a particular concern or need that you want to have us factor in, then let us know. Otherwise, we'll assign you to another nice person in this class. Yeah. Yeah. Michelle.
So 2 questions for each week, or is it?
Is that reasonable?
No, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and I'm kind of putting it back to you all. I'm willing to, it would be 4 questions in total if you did 2 per reading. I mean, I intend that to be something that helps you make the most of the reading and then helps us make the most of the conversation when we get together, group up about it, right? So is that reasonable, or is 1 each better?
And these are posted on Blackboard, right?
The survey, yeah, is on Blackboard. Yeah, I think you did it there. Or
The reading, these
oh, the readings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe the readings are there. Has anybody taken a crack at them yet? Yeah? Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, so the Unsettlers is looking at this small variety of people who take a pretty radical approach to going off the grid, going off of fossil fuels, and living more sustainably. And it's written in an interesting voice, I think. Yeah.
Last meeting, we talked about like talking to somebody that lives kind of differently
Thank
than
you.
us.
Yes.
So I had a little email conversation. It's a place in New Mexico. They're like chips.
Neat.
I found them through like a BuzzFeed video. It was like a person that tried
Yeah.
to live in there for 24 hours. So I just emailed them and kind of like asked them a couple questions on how it is. And it's kind of interesting. Like they have a website and everything. You can book a stay.
Yeah.
But their whole idea, there's like a guy that started it. And the whole thing is just like everything, the whole house, the way it's built, like you have everything you would have in a normal house. You have a shower, you can cook, but like the water is refiltered or filtered,
Yeah.
rainwater, energy comes from the sun, the food is like grown there, and then the houses are built with like tires.
Yeah,
and,
upcycled materials.
yeah, and then
I want to say, in the interest of time, for folks who have to leave, we are over time at this point. And thank you for reminding us about that assignment. We'll bring that in when we get together on the 11th in some exploratory
yeah.
activity, conversation about sustainable living, intentionality, and other perspectives. So great. I'm so glad you got to have a little virtual conversation with Earthship folks.
Yeah, I didn't actually think they would respond.
Yeah.
Because the emails on the website was like reception and then
Mhm.
academy-wise if you want to do like an internship. And I was like,
Mhm.
I'll just give it a shot.
Neat.
And they're like, yeah, I'll answer your questions. I was like, awesome, thanks.
Any other questions or comments before we go? Yes, we will want to take those from you. Are we forgetting anything, Allegra?
No, everybody signed this form that went around, had the emergency contact information and all that. Sure. We got one.
Thanks, Lizzie.